How many of you have had that kid? Or perhaps the question might be better asked, how many of you were that kid? You know, the kid that the parents say, ha, 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 you deserve that. I was that kid. Although my grandparents both looked at both of my parents and said, you don't even deserve that. When I was 5, we were at a hotel, and it had a high board in the deep end, a 3-meter board. And people were jumping off of it, and it looked like so much fun. I wanted to do it. My dad said no. I said, Dad, and I stayed after it until he said, all right, but I'll be, down there underneath. Cool. Which is important because I didn't swim real well. I mean, I could doggy paddle, but, if I'm in the deep end, it's probably good to have an adult around. So I got up, walked out to the end, looked down, saw my dad, and started to walk back. He thought I had chickened out and was going back down the ladder. I was just getting a running start. Meanwhile, my mom was sunbathing down at the other end of the pool, looked up just in time to see her baby going off the board, not seeing Dad below. It was good for her circulation, kept her heart moving. And that, being that kid, is why we need ashes tonight. I mean, did you hear the lessons? Joel says, rend your hearts, not your garments. Let your penitence be inward. Matthew says, wash your faces. Don't show that you're fasting. And yet we're going to come up here in a little while, and we're going to smear ashes all over each other in spite of what the lessons say. Why? The reason is because we need to be reminded of what it is that really separates us from God. It's not just all those things that we do or don't do, but it's that desire in our hearts and in our minds to refuse to be dependent on God. We all want to be that kid who thinks they can do anything and don't really need the help. We're happy to let God stay in heaven while we run our lives however we want, and then if things don't go well, then we'll give him a call. But Lent is about remembering that we need God not some of the time, all of the time. Lent is remembering that apart from him we can do nothing good. And that it's our refusal to ask, to submit ourselves, and have God lead us. Peter, at one point, turns to Jesus and says, "No, Lord." Well, if Jesus is Lord, how do we say no to him? Lent is about getting back to understanding just how much we need God. It's about recognizing that the root of all sin is independence. It's separating ourselves out from God, trying to do it ourselves, separating out from the community, the body of Christ. Which serves as a very wonderful corrective measure in our lives. If you're ever not sure about whether something you're doing is right or wrong, just tell everybody in church and see what they say. It's when we think we're independent and don't need God that we are the most vulnerable to sin. It's where all sin lies en route. Let me tell you, Lent mirrors not just the 40 days that Jesus spent in the wilderness tempted by Satan, but also the 40 years that Israel spent making a 2-week walk. It does not take 40 years to get from Egypt to the Promised Land. I don't care how many people, how many flocks you've got, it's just not that long a trip. But Israel had to learn to depend on God. They had to have the lesson of manna. They needed to know that it's God who provides. It's hard, isn't it? Look out here. You're all smart, good-looking people. You've obviously gotten where you've gotten by pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps and making a way in this world. But every breath I take is because God has granted me life. The ashes go on. We say, remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return. When God formed Adam out of dust, he breathed his breath, his wind, his ruach into Adam, and the Spirit of God entered Adam, and he became alive. Every breath we take is God breathed. This Lent, maybe think about how you can draw nearer to Him, not by showing off, not by what you can give up or what you can add on, but how you can yield your spirit to His. Because whether we want to admit it or not, we need a Father at the bottom of the pool, waiting, ready to catch us if we don't quite make it, to encourage us and push us along, to guide us in the right direction. Don't be that kid, that my-by-self person who misses the opportunity to invite Jesus in and ask for help.